Um, so when I was thinking about, what I'm going to say to you today, uh, my immediate thought was I'm going to tell you about these inspiring stories of entrepreneurs, these people that I meet, these everyday heroes. But I don't have to tell you, you heard that in Chapal. So it's great to be back after 3 years, jobs we make. Um, we're very excited to be back and sharing these stories, but a lot of work has been going on. I just want to start the presentation by sharing a few facts with you about entrepreneurship in India. But before I do even the facts about entrepreneurship in India, I just want to talk about the challenge of job creation and employment. 46% of young people, 46% of youth in India lost jobs in the COVID pandemic. The labor force participation of women has been rapidly going down even before the COVID pandemic. 90% of the women actually work in subsistence out of the total facts. If we were to just boost rural entrepreneurship, our GDP would actually increase by 70%. But there's also an interesting fact. We're also the third largest ecosystem for startups in the world. So have we been just looking in one direction? Because only 5% of people who want to set up a business are able to do so. Hence, there's a need for inclusion, for inclusive entrepreneurship, which for us is a transition. Dr. Khosla has already mentioned what it means, but it's a twofold transition. Having many more people come into entrepreneurship, young people, specially able, marginalized, women, anyone who's underrepresented. And the second is to move beyond just survival mode, doing entrepreneurship just because there's no other choice, but because there's an opportunity as entrepreneurship happens. For me, inclusive entrepreneurship is actually signified by Mamta, who has employed 15 people in her village and has never worked before in her life. Not only she is building a better future for herself, but for her daughter. Powered by Work for Progress social innovation approach, with Princess Christina and Dr. Khosla had mentioned, and collective action. Please do not miss our long list of partners. This is not just about development alternatives or Lakasha Foundation. It takes a lot of collective action. And this social innovation approach has 3 steps. One, how do we make the invisible, the 90% of the economy that is invisible, much more visible? During the COVID pandemic, we realized that we haven't been listening enough. Women perhaps don't need safe spaces. Maybe they need brave spaces to be able to walk into the future of work. If you have been marginalized, if you've been wailed under intergenerational barriers, you need brave spaces to move on. How do you also connect to the disconnected new reality? You heard the entrepreneurs, you heard their aspirations. They're growing rapidly. Yet, are we only offering them top-down solutions or traditional solutions? So we co-created the solutions with them. We came up with innovative solutions through Kaun Banega Business Leader, which is like a reality show foundation, like a reality show. Who's going to be the next millionaire? Kaun Banega next crorepati? And the interesting thing is just 5 villages, 2,000 applications are sent. It's not just about who wins the competition. It's actually about the fact that it internalizes entrepreneurship in the region. And the third, we need a radical thinking of building bridges in the system in order to make sure that all these prototypes come to life. Prototypes such as the Regional Entrepreneurship Coalition, which at the district level is ensuring that the ecosystem of entrepreneurship is rapidly changing. 5 years of Work for Progress program. It's been slow going. It took time, 11 months of just listening. And now we have reached the acceleration phase. But we have some new narratives that we want to share. In fact, 5 narratives that we've chosen to share with you. But before I do that, I do want to mention that it takes interconnected prototypes to create the solution. We're living in a messy, dynamic world. It can't just be one solution for creating radical change. If you need to make a biryani, you need to have all the ingredients, or a paella for that matter. You can't have it with just one ingredient. So these integrated micro-movements are creating these narratives. The first, in one of the most backward regions in India, or they say so, in Newari, there's building a culture of entrepreneurship. We were mocked and laughed at when we mentioned 5 years ago we wanted to create a culture of entrepreneurship here. We were told it was not just possible. Women are changing the world, changing the way the women are changing the world over here. Safe mobility networks, where women are at the forefront of mobility. Are we just going to keep listening to the fact that women have mobility challenges, or are we going to flip the question and say, okay, how do women solve the problem themselves? You heard her. You heard Seema Harsh is sort of doing that. The third is young people, brimming with aspirations, the need for technologies. There's a network of 150 Udyami kiosks that are providing enterprise support services to the entrepreneurs on the ground, as opposed to dependence on a program. Or a financial ecosystem emerging. None of the entrepreneurs or the enterprises have been subsidized or given freebies. And there was a need for a lot of alternative finance, whether it's the social investor peer-to-peer lending with our partner Rangde, or a microcredit facility run by Women's Federation. We've been able to unlock the financial ecosystem where banks and MFIs have reduced their interest rates and amortization to make sure that the ecosystem gets unlocked. And not least for sure, but creating partnerships for impact. The program has been receiving recognition all over the world, but I think the greatest joy that we get is when our entrepreneurs are getting awards and recognition all over. Just want to spend a few minutes on this particular slide, where I want to draw your attention to the fact that a lot of times when we create solutions, we talk very little about the sustainability of them. 98% of the enterprises are still thriving even after the pandemic. It baffles us. It is the power of social innovation. And 95% of them are creating profits. There comes a point, and I'm sorry, I can't really, this is a graph that I can't really point to, but there comes a time when the investments that you're making in a program start going down, the investments and the jobs made by entrepreneurs start going up. And we've reached that stage where we feel we're ready for acceleration. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready for acceleration. Because in the last 5 years have reiterated the idea that the power of human connection, collective action, solidarity, and just believing in yourself can create so much of a radical change. I hope you will all join us.